Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Dana Osgood, here with my co-host, Caroline Castora. We've got a great show for you this week with a climatology segment by Brian Michigan and a feature by Stuart Dougherty.
I'm excited to see what Brian and Stuart have for us this week, but first we have to get through nature in the news. What stories do you have for us this week?
I'm excited too. This week, I have nature in the news stories about the fynbos plant of Africa and the failure to discover stars in the cosmic dawn.
That sounds pretty interesting. This week I have stories about floating homes to combat rising sea levels and the desertification in the United Arab Emirates. And with that, let's get into nature in the news. The Netherlands is combating rising sea levels in a unique way. Floating homes. Faced with worsening floods and a housing shortage, the Dutch adapted. These houses are free to rise and fall with water levels, keeping them anchored in place but changing in height. They are also inspiring other nations faced with similar issues to take part in floating housing. A benefit to these floating houses that normal houseboats don't have is that they can still be attached to the local sewage and power grid. Neighborhoods are even arising that consist of only floating homes, which allow areas along the water to be repurposed. Rotterdam, Europe's largest seaport, even has a floating office building. Areas most prone to catastrophic sea level rise should take note of what the Netherlands is doing with floating houses, and they should try and implement these tactics into the future.
An aerial view of Africa shows a sharp contrast between the plains and the forest. But why is the line so sharp? Fynbos plants live on the southernmost tip of Africa. What is so special about them is they have the thinnest roots ever to be found by scientists. Their roots are around 0.1 millimeters, allowing them to find nutrients in even the smallest of spaces. They grab nutrients away from other plants, so much so to where plants grow 5 times better away from the fynbos. The ability of the roots to pull up all the nutrients in the area leaves them in a bit of a world of their own. They now grow in areas where only they can survive, causing sharp contrasts to where they rule and to where other plants can still grow. Therefore, they have their own biome in southern Africa. Scientists believe that in addition to climatological factors, this biome was largely established by a, quote, plant war. They are considered a scientific marvel, and the roots are also speculated to help scientists learn about the spread of invasive species.
Deserts are creeping closer and closer to Dubai, threatening what viable land they have left. This is happening all over the United Arab Emirates. On one side, there's water, and on the other side, the desert is inching closer to the coast. Desertification is the degradation of fertile land into unusable and unproductive land. Certain vegetation types cannot be supported in the desert land, which stresses food supplies when desertification happens. Around 46,000 square miles are lost around the world annually to desertification, and agricultural land in the UAE fell over 2%. The UAE already relies heavily on imports for food, so losing fertile land to desertification can pose problems. They started the 1 Million Trees initiative, aiming to plant 1 million trees in green areas to halt it. However, it has already failed as the trees died. They are currently trying a new liquid natural clay nanoparticle to bind to soil and prevent desertification, and it's still in its early stages, so we will see how the UAE continues to prevent desertification.
It seems the sun has not yet risen on the cosmic dawn. What scientists originally believed were radio waves from the first stars were nowhere to be found. At least 100 million years after the Big Bang is believed to be the time that stars first appeared, but it is an area of history that is not well understood by scientists. The glimmer was first discovered in 2018 by the EDGES project in the Australian outback. But the discovery required more research, since the dip in the radio waves was a lot deeper than scientists were expecting from the early stars. Radio waves coming from space have proved very tricky in the past. It is difficult to determine the origin of radio waves, and mistakes in the past have provided some scientific discoveries that had to be reanalyzed. This time, the team is working with the radio sensor SARAS-3, which is designed to sit on top of a lake, making it a lot easier to interpret the radio waves. The lake makes it easier because the layered nature of soil can disrupt the waves. Scientists are eagerly awaiting the results to see if the sun will finally rise on the cosmic dawn.
February 28th marks the end of the 2021-2022 meteorological winter season, and to recap, we will go back in time to December 2021. December started around average with highs in the lower 40s and lows in the lower 30s. However, the pattern became above average when high pressure over southern Louisiana and a mid-latitude cyclone above northern Ontario helped feed warm, moist air up through the Appalachian Mountains into central Pennsylvania. Even with two cold frontal passages, temperatures stayed well above average for over a week until a strong cold front passed through on the evening of Saturday the 18th. On Friday the 17th, State College had its warmest day of the month with a temperature of 65, breaking the day's high temperature record of 60 set in 1924. The coldest nights occurred days later on the nights of the 21st and 22nd at 20 degrees. Temperatures remained around average up to Christmas Eve and climbed above average through Christmas. The 26th saw a temperature record nearly broken with a high of 62. The record for the day was 63, set back in 1982. Even with a cold front passage on the 27th, temperatures remained above average to finish the year. However, the night of the 28th saw low temperatures below freezing, allowing 1.5 inches of snow to fall on the snowiest day of the month. The following day, 0.89 inches of liquid precipitation fell. 2022 started off wet as the stationary front brought rain to the area with temperatures 10 degrees above average. It remained above average until January the 6th when a cold front advanced, plummeting temperatures to average and below. This trend continued until the 13th and 14th as a warm front associated with the low pressure system raised temperatures above average. The cold front associated with the low pressure system brought in Arctic air and plunged overnight temperatures into the single digits. On the night of the 16th, a nor'easter dropped almost an inch of liquid precipitation. This fell as almost 7 inches of snow. Penn State did not cancel classes because it was MLK Day, but did shut down other campus buildings and activities. After another frontal passage on Thursday, the 20th, temperatures remained below average to finish the month. January 23rd was the only day of meteorological winter where temperatures dropped below zero. February started off cold with a minimum temperature of 8 degrees on the first of the month, the last time the minimum touched the single digits for winter. Temperatures jumped to above average for Thursday the 3rd. A strong cold front overnight dropped over 2 inches of liquid precipitation, including ice accretion. This led to schools closing for the day on Friday the 4th. Temperatures also dropped to below average for the following week. A warm front would help boost temperatures above average on the 10th. A cold front would bring temperatures back below average on the 13th. A mid-latitude cyclone would raise temperatures above average for the 17th and 18th, only to plummet back below average for the 19th. Temperatures would rebound for the 22nd and 23rd when a high temperature of 60 and 61 were hit, the first time in 2022 when the max temperature hit 60 degrees. A cold front on the 23rd would keep temperatures below average to the 27th. A weak cyclone would drop 1.5 inches of snow on the 25th. The last day of meteorological winter saw temperatures jump above average. The meteorological winter season of 2021-2022 saw the 20th warmest winter, tying with the meteorological winters of 1929 to 1930 and 2005 to 2006. 17 and 7/10 of an inch of snow fell, leading to the 23rd least snowiest winter for State College. This tied with 1912 to 1913, 1932 to 1933, and 1964 to 1965. Normally 30.5 inches of snow would fall in the 3 months of meteorological winter. 9 and 27/100 of an inch of liquid precip fell. This is almost 3/4 of an inch above the normal of 8 and 56/100 of an inch. With March 1st being the first day of meteorological spring, who knows what Mother Nature has to offer? For Whether or Not, I am Stuart Dougherty.
Hello everyone, Penn State student meteorologist Brian Michigan here with a special climatology outlook for the month of March. We did a similar type of climatology outlook back in November when us Penn State students were headed off to Thanksgiving break. Now that we're headed off to spring break, going to be doing a similar thing here. Starting off with our temperature outlook issued by the Climate Prediction Center. This is the latest outlook for the month of March, so definitely could change as we head throughout the month. So this is definitely not set in stone, but as of right now, above normal temperatures expected for areas of the southeastern portion of the country, places like Florida, and even us here in State College. We could see a pretty warm month, relatively speaking, as we head throughout March. Off towards the north and west, Seattle and Billings, Montana, Montana, those areas could be seeing a slightly cooler March than compared to average. Shifting gears to our precipitation outlook, you can see above normal precipitation is what's currently predicted for areas like Chicago, Minneapolis, even us here in State College, all the way up to Caribou, Maine. And as we head towards the north and west, Seattle and Billings, Montana, above normal precipitation is what's predicted out there as well. Off towards the southeast and southwest, that's where you could be seeing a slightly drier month of March ahead. States like Texas or New Mexico, even down into Florida, could be a little bit dry as we head throughout the month. Now up next, we're going to be comparing the start of the month, March 1st, to the end, March 31st, starting with our sunrise and sunset times. 6:45 is our sunrise to start the month, followed by 6:03 as your sunset. Average high to start the month sitting at about 40 degrees, and our average low sitting at 24. Now to compare that with March 31st, sunrise is at 6:57 and a sunset at 7:35. The average high at the end of the month is 52 degrees. We're gaining about 12 degrees from how we started the month. And when it comes to our average low temperature, 33 degrees to end the month, and that's about 9 degrees higher than we started the month. So general trend warming up as we head throughout March and into the spring season. Speaking of spring, the spring equinox occurring on March 20th at 11:33 a.m. Going to be a tough couple mornings for those who are not quite the morning people. We're going to be losing about an hour of sleep with the spring equinox. So definitely don't forget to set your clocks forward an hour on that date. Up next, we're going to be looking at some of our extremes, starting with temperatures here in State College. Record high temperature in State College, 86 degrees, set back on March 3rd of 1907. And our record low, -9, set back on March 18th of 1900. Certainly a very chilly low temperature there. Sometimes throughout the winter, we might not even hit -9. So definitely was a cold day in that time in history. Snowfall, as we head throughout March, State College generally sits just under 10 inches of snow for the month. However, if we look at our record for one of the snowiest months of March on record, 47.5 inches of snow. That's back for March of 1942. And that's going to about do it for this climatology outlook for the month of March. We'll have more coming up in a minute.
And now here's your whiz quiz question. What day does daylight savings time start? A, March 1st, B, March 6th, C, March 13th, and D, March 14th.
And the answer is C, March 13th. It starts at 2 a.m. that day, so be ready to lose an hour of sleep.
I'll be sure I go to bed an extra hour early because I definitely can't afford to lose that extra hour of sleep.
Yeah, same. And that's all we have for this week's Whether or Not. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you again next week. And with that, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Dana. Have a great week.